Okay, it's Saturday, August 5th, about quarter till 11. It's been a couple of weeks since the infamous Keel Dragger Palooza meetup at White Cove, and today we are gonna embark on a little bit more of a chill mission, solo adventure, somewhere to Catalina Island. I haven't decided yet. I was hoping to leave a little bit earlier, so it gives me a little bit less time if I want to go to the back side of the island and still do stuff when I get there. I'm kind of leaning towards Cat Harbor, but I'm just gonna wing it and see how I feel here. All right, no view of Catalina. Here we are at Angel's Gate, LA. All right, mainsail's up, we're motor sailing. Winds are still a little light here. Quarter after 11. Starting to feel a little bit of wind on the nose. I'm seeing about 12.7 apparent. We're kind of motoring into the swell, so we're still running parallel to the coast here. Headed about 234 degrees, course over ground. I think I'm going to head for Cat Harbor. The wind's actually supposed to fill in closer to 1 p.m. Fill in a little bit more, 10 to 15, although we feel a little bit of breeze right now. I think if we head over to port and bear off, we're gonna lose a little bit. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna motor a little bit at this course, and actually at 232 we're not really running parallel to the course. We're kind of bisecting between Catalina Island here and the coast. So I could actually go a little bit more to starboard, but what I want to do is get us on a nice reach so that we're not hauling, you know, so we have to haul real tight to the wind and see if we can't make the west side of the island. I think if we do that, I'm going to have to probably come up a little bit more and motor a little bit further. All right, so we're going to motor sail for a little while, but we are going to try and follow the predict wind course. So I've went ahead and did the weather routing to Cat Harbor, and I imported into TZI boat. So we've got our route in TZI boat. It actually did tell me to come up a few degrees, so now I'm running a little bit more parallel to land, not quite. We're up to 251 is our course to steer. Actually, I need to come up just a couple more degrees. So we'll jump on that, and then we're gonna head, as long as this wind is light, we're gonna keep motor sailing into it, and then we'll follow the waypoints and see how much sailing we can get in. So I think that boat that just whizzed by is actually U.S. Customs Air and Marine Operations. So they're I don't know, checking out boats up here to see if anyone's up by LA maybe trying to sneak in. It's about 20 to 1. Went a little past the first ley line, and just wanted to go a little bit past it, and then just went 20 degrees down to get a little bit of wind. So I'm looking at 30 degrees right now, roughly. Apparent wind angle. Is about what I want when I'm motor sailing. I don't want too much less than 30, and we're gonna go for, I don't know, I think the wind's supposed to come up at around 130, which is about 45 minutes. I'm actually starting to see a little bit more pressure at the moment, true of maybe 11 knots or so, which is pretty good. So once we get past this next waypoint, we will drop down to port another, I don't know, we'll see, maybe 25 degrees or so down to port, and then we'll have a nice close reach at that point. May turn into a broad reach later on, and we should have some dynamite sailing here in about so the next hour. 1:34. I went ahead and raised up the Yankee so that we've got full canvas out. I dropped down about 10 or 15 degrees. Still getting a little bit of luff. I still got the motor running because we've got about another 500 meters to go before we hit the waypoint. And then we're gonna cut maybe another 15 degrees to port. And hopefully that gets us a good enough wind angle to sail to the west side of the island. Let's go ahead and cut the engine and see where that gets us. Slow down a little bit. We're doing about 4.8 knots, 4.7. Not horrible. And this is about as far as I want to drop. Seeing about 55 apparent. And looks like we're a little strapped on the head sail. We're gonna let it out so it's not leaning up against the cap shroud. A little under 6 knots right now. This feels great. We're still pointing above the island, which is good. We'll take a look and see where that's at. There's the west end of Catalina. We stay on this tack. We don't get knocked too much. Should be able to stay on this heading. I keep getting knocked. The sails are luffing, so I'm trying to decide if I start dropping down, I'm not going to make the west end. If I keep luffing, I'm just going to create more wear on the sail. I'm not moving much, so the wind's a little weaker than it started here when we started sailing. We're not able to point quite as high, but you know, the wind is still supposed to be coming up, and it's still about 10 till 2. So if the European model is correct, we should be seeing more wind here. But this isn't much right now. I'm gonna maybe try and take her a little bit more to port and see if we can keep these sails from luffing. So the autopilot's off and I'm steering my hand now. Let's see if I can play these shifts a little bit and see if I can sail around the island without having to tack or power around it. But if I don't do something, I'm not gonna make it. The wind keeps shifting a little bit when we get these headers, then the head sail starts luffing. So as long as I can drive by hand here, I think I can drive a little better than what the autopilot's doing. 20 till 3. I sort of threw in the towel, not exactly. Headed towards the island now. We're not going to make it around. I just had to drop because we were getting knocked too much and slowing the boat down. Head sail's luffing, which is not real good on the sail, so 15 degrees to port. Instead of going 4.8, we're doing 6.2 right now. Going quite a bit faster. If I bared off another 5 degrees, we'd probably be doing over 6.5. So that's just trying to beat into weather, close hauled. So our speed is a little bit better. I'll have to manage the head sail, and I'll decide whether I want to tack around or power around it if I get too lazy. But either way, we weren't going to make it on that tack very well without just kind of crawling. So the wind were a little bit stronger, so if we had, you know, let's say a little closer to 15 knots versus just a little over 10 true, we'd be fine. We'd be able to point those higher angles and predict wind with the stock Valiant 40 polars. We'd be sailing our lines a little bit better. Of course, if we had newer sails, that helped too. We're about 2 miles from the island right now. As you can see, we're headed right for the island. We're not going to be able to head up and sail around without throwing in a tack. Right now we're about 2.5 nautical miles out. So once we get about a mile off, we are going to tack. So our tacking operation, because this is a cutter and we got to get past the staysail, means we're going to furl up the head sail So that's the sheet for the Yankee for the head sail. This is the furling line. So we'll loosen up the furler on this winch and loosen up that line while we're pulling in the furling line. That's going to wrap up the Yankee. And then we'll tack. The staysail can just come over and tack. So we'll just bring the staysail over. And then once we're on our new tack, then we'll unroll the head sail onto the starboard side. But we'll be on a port tack because the wind is going to be coming across the port side. We're on a starboard tack right now. And we're just a little under 2 miles from the island. We're going to go about 1 mile more, and then we'll do our tack. Sailing vessel blew away. Sailing vessel blew away. Keel dragger.
Keel dragger, go ahead.
Hey, blew away. You want to go up to 6-9er?
Roger. Keel dragger.
Hey, Bill. What's your 20? Over.
Good question. Let me check.
So Blue Away's coming down from Marina del Rey. A little bit further. I think we'll have to...
Mayday. I'm off ocean side right now. I am taking on water. Mayday.
Shit.
That's off ocean side, taking on water. This is Coast Guard San Diego. What's your GPS position? Over.
All right, good copy on that. I'm just 1 mile from the west end of the island, over.
Okay, you're a couple hours ahead of me.
Yeah, probably a couple of hours. So I couldn't make it around the island without having to do a couple of short tacks here. So I'm just making my way around the west end, and then I'll head in. I'll see you there at the anchorage. Over. Traffic, catamaran behind us. We're coming on a pretty close course of intersection here until we tacked. Now we're going to see if we can get around the west end on this tack or not. 10 till 4. Maybe we'll make it. The wind's dying down here, which is a better problem. So we slowed down a bit, and we're not able to carry the high angle into the wind. So we're going to stay like this. We may be going slow and pinching it a little bit. As soon as we make it around that rock, though, we can bear off, and then we should pick up some speed and have some better sailing. We have slowed to a crawl. We're gonna make it without firing up the engine? I don't know. Really prefer not to bear off anymore. The wind's pretty light. We're getting knocked. Probably it's gonna be like this till we get around. It's 4:15 and we proved our point about sailing across the west end without having to fire up the engine. So there's the west end behind us, and there is a really cool view of Eagle Rock. You can see Ribbon Rock down there. I don't know, maybe a couple of miles down the way. So our wind's down to about 5 or 6 knots. We're cruising along maybe 3 knots and some change, pretty slow. And I'm thinking I may fire up the engine. I'm gonna see what I can get out of the sails here real quick, but there just isn't much wind here. I was hoping that the wind would pick up when we got on the other side of the island, but Looks like it's starting to shut down for the afternoon maybe. Normally, you know, we get the winds come up in the afternoon and then they start shutting down right about dusk. So we've still got another, you know, 2.5 hours before that, but I'm just really not seeing much wind here. So maybe we'll see a little bit more, but when I look on the water, I don't see much. 20 after 4, motor's running. Winds were dying down, so we're gonna go ahead and motor in at this point. Still have the staysail and the main up. Still seeing a little bit of apparent wind, so we're making pretty good speed right now. High 6 is close to 7, and we'll stay on this until we get to Cat Harbor. We're a little less than 3 miles from Cat Harbor. Can you see the entrance to Cat Harbor from here? We're coming from the west end. Not very well, it's not very conspicuous, is it? Let's see when we get a little bit closer. All right, we're getting a little closer. You see Catalina Head coming out? So you see this little kind of sharp peak here, follow that down. See the antenna up there. It's a little bit over to the right. And the antenna on that hill. This kind of rocky formation, sometimes referred to as the pregnant lady. Almost at the entrance. Thought I'd give myself a little bit of room. And a few boats over here. Got this bait bar thing over here. There's the buoy. There's Pin Rock. So we are, you look at the chart here, we're just right about Center Harbor and Cat Harbor. And we're seeing somewhere 88, 90 feet of water. Should be good. Next thing is anchors down. I've got 3-to-1 scope, a little over that, 300 feet out. I'm gonna snub her up here with the snubber put on. So why do I hook this bridle or snubber up to the chain? Well, a couple of things. One, it helps keep the shock loads. I can keep this chain loose. Two, I can kind of lower the point where it's pulling the tension below the water line a little bit. So this line stretches and absorbs a lot of the shock loads when we're at anchor. It's good to take the pressure off the windlass, but it's especially good when you want to back up and set the anchor. So what we do is we drop the anchor all the way down with the chain. We let the wind and the current drift us a little bit, which will stretch out the chain a little bit, and then we actually put the engine in reverse a little bit and make sure that the anchor sets and we quit moving in reverse. Then we know that we're all anchor set and snubbed up. All right, cooking with keel dragger. Not going to be much of an episode. We've got a ribeye steak. We just put a little bit of kosher salt. If you have a good cut of steak, that's really all you need. Here's our steak and 2 roasting ears. Roasting ears is one word. At least I thought so when my grandfather called them roasting ears when I was a kid. All right, looks pretty good. All right, good morning. Time to survey the situation. Pretty chill morning. We've got a little bit of a potato, sausage, and egg scramble for breakfast. It's a cool boat. Erickson Independence. Well, after 10 o'clock, we're going to go ahead and haul anchor. Look at this character here with only, what, 1,600 watts of solar?
And not one of them plugged in.
And not one of them plugged in?
Not one of them doing
That's
anything.
nuts, though. I love it.
Yeah, these are huge, these ones.
Holy crap.
415 each.
415 each? Well, you've got the real estate to do it. It looks good.
Yeah, they mounted real nice. So we'll have to get them wired up now next week and see how they operate.
Pretty uneventful launch. I do need to upgrade the breaker for my windlass. It's a pretty common occurrence when I'm in deep water that it pops. That old thing, I have one. It's just a matter of time and effort. Prioritizing my time seems to be my biggest challenge. All right, we're off. Mainsail is up. We're gonna motor sail for a little while, see if the winds come up. We'll be back in the shadow once we get around the west end of the island, though, till we get out a little bit. So it's about 10:30 almost. My guess is we've got a good 2.5 hours worth of motoring, and then maybe some slow sailing. We'll see. Well, here we are back at the west end. About 65 degrees over to starboard as we're going around the west end here, and we'll get a little bit of a reach, but there is not a lot of wind.
Alright, sir, and really quick, your speed. Roger, see there inbound from the south. Okay, 9.0. Alright, so thank you, sir. Out.
It's cool that this guy's so he hailed another recreational boat, asked if someone had the ship on AIS, and then he's hailing the ship on VHF, asking him where he's headed and what his speed is. Like, it's a good reason why I've got at least a couple of forms of AIS on this boat, just because I don't want to have to rely on others' guesswork. Worst case, if I've got a visual, I'll use a ham bearing compass. Noon update, 19.5 miles to go to Angel's Gate. Still a little bit of fog. We've got maybe a couple miles of visibility out here. And I can already see we've got a couple of ships here in the shipping lanes. About an hour and a half we'll be negotiating them. We'll see how that works out. So we've got a couple of southbound, and I don't think we're close enough to have any northbound ships of concern. Another boat, engine stalled. They're trying to figure out how to give their GPS coordinates. Now, I'm going to show you how quickly you can get your GPS coordinates. Ready? Go. All right. North 33 degrees, 31.268. West 118 degrees, 32.940. And
Anthony.
look at that. You can read that. 33 degrees, 31.282 north, 118 degrees, 32.917 west. Okay, that's 2. Let's see if we have another device we can get our coordinates on. Okay, 33 degrees, 31.322 north, 118 degrees, 32.885 west. Okay, how long did that take? Not very long. Come on. If you're going to be out on the water, at least have a couple of methods to get your latitude and longitude. When you need to get help, it's going to save an awful lot of time. This guy says he's having a real hard time finding his GPS coordinates.
Ask Siri. Tell you. That we keep asking, but it's not working.
Asking Siri.
I'll update you if we get it.
Seriously. Come on, man.
Yeah, what's your stores? Switch to 16 and hit the Coast Guard. Yeah, right.
He's going to hail the Coast Guard to do a long count so he can find us.
That position put you about 9 miles north to Catalina. Does that sound correct? I'm sorry, say that again? Just confirming, that position should put you in the middle between San Pedro and mid-Catalina Island. Does that sound correct? Correct.
About 10 till 1 p.m. Just kind of watching the shipping lanes. There's supposed to be 2 ships out here, but I only have viz on one container ship. That's actually, I think I see both. I see maybe what looks like a tanker here and a cargo ship here. We're gonna get within 1.5 miles or so CPA, which is generally, you know, where I start paying super close attention if I'm within a couple miles. So we're going to keep watching these two. We'll look at AIS and see how they're doing. But it's good to know I can see 5 miles or so out on the water. Visibility's not too horrible. Of course, I'm running radar. Let's see what we got. Now, I'd love to have radar at the helm with the chart plotter. No such luck. And let's zoom out here. We're in too close.
Calling vessel Bravo, calling the Coast Guard. This is Coast Guard Los Angeles. Coming back 1 second.
Okay, I can see these two ships right here pretty clearly on radar. We'll go back to our 6 nautical miles, so you can see one a little bit less, and we've got some smaller signals. Everybody's on their way home right now. Now let's see what AIS tells us. Longview logger. He's going to have a CPA of 1.22 miles in about 36 minutes. So that's the first one. The second one is the SM Shanghai, 1.87 nautical miles. Give or take. So we're likely going to be ducking behind or traveling behind the SM Shanghai here. Now my binoculars have a compass in them, so I can get the bearing. So I see SM line right there. If I take a bearing over 2 different times, if that number is getting bigger, further away, that means we're not going to hit. If it stays the same as we're approaching each other, then that means that we're at risk of collision. So right now I see bearing of 9. Now I see bearing of 10. And a CPA of 1.45. So we're not getting any much closer. Bearing of 10. And if he keeps going now, bearing of 11. So this number's going up. So I know SM line is coming across, and we're going to be fine passing the stern. Now this other vessel, this other ship, is the Longview logger. He's more of a concern. He's going maybe about the same 6.81 knots, so a little slower than us. Bearing of 001 and a CPA of I don't know, somewhere around a half mile or so. At least 2.5 miles out. So we want to keep an eye on the Longview logger, and we want to see this bearing distance change. Right now it looks like we're still going to pass within about a half mile. That's a little closer than we want to pass to these ships. We want to keep a little bit more of a safe range. So we'll watch SM line here, and they're good. But I think what we're going to go ahead and do now is we're going to go ahead and turn to port, and let's get this bearing number to increase. So it still says 001. I just did 10 degrees to port. See, the bearing changed a little bit. Now the CPA looks like it's bounced up a little bit. We'll take our 10 degrees more to port. Bearing of 002. And now he's at 0.8 miles. So now you can see the Longview logger up ahead, just a little bit to port. And now we have SM line already across our bow. We can be pretty confident that we're going to pass behind Longview logger as long as they maintain their speed and course. And if they start to shift or anything like that, but we're staying about a mile away from them at this point. Once he crosses our bow, we get a little bit closer, because I'll start heading back, because we are now about 30 degrees off our course. 2:15. Got a little tired of listening to the engine, so I went in and shut it off. We're about 5 miles out. I've got the main and just the staysail out. Winds are coming just slightly abaft of us, slightly aft of the beam. We're not going that fast. We're doing maybe 3.8 knots or so. I'm not even going to mess with the Yankee. I'm just going to sit down and relax for a little while and just enjoy the quiet. And then we'll sail a couple miles or so. Maybe 3, maybe 4, and then we'll put the sails in and fire the engine back up. These seagulls are feeding on something in the water. That's it's a little mola there by those 2 seagulls. Just floating right at the top. It turned out to be a nice little sail for the last part of our voyage here. We're doing a little over 5 knots with the broad reach. I can see Angel's Gate from here. It's kind of headed right on course. We are just going to keep sailing till we get to the mouth of the LA Harbor. Fans of keel dragger flying over.
Sailing vessel on course 349.
That looks like fun. So we're trying to figure out what to do now. About 2 miles away, we have the MSC Carlotta. Sorry, the MSC Carlotta over to starboard. Inbound cargo ship. Way in the distance, you can see SM Line. It's the SM Shanghai that we saw earlier. He's headed into Long Beach, but MSC here is headed into LA Harbor. All right. Dead downwind. I should have this main pushed out. We'll see if we do a crash jibe or not.
Lazy Days, this is Bonnie. Come in, please.
The MSC Carlotta, looks like our CPA is looking to be about 1 mile or 1.4 miles. He's traveling at 8 knots. There's 2 tugboats out there waiting for him. So we're gonna stay on this course and see if we can't tuck in behind him. As long as he's going 8 knots, it's not going to be an issue. MSC Carlotta making her way through Angel's Gate into LA Harbor. Range of about 0.8 miles from us right now. 2 tugs, one off the bow, one off the stern. Looks like we've got a sailboat to port. The MSC Carlotta kind of making their way through Angel's Gate at the same time. I would have given these guys more room, probably. Of course, the wind's up quite a bit now that we're in Hurricane Gulch. Getting close to peak afternoon sun. It's not uncommon to have very little wind outside in the channel there, and then to come back into LA Harbor, which we call Hurricane Gulch, in the afternoon, and to see over 20 knots. And it'll die down this evening, but pretty much every afternoon you can almost bank on the winds here in the afternoon in this localized area.